You lost again.
It's not fair. You're bigger than I am. It's not fair to win twice.
Ah, but nobody ever said that life was fair, Tina. I'm bigger and I'm faster. I will always beat you.
Faye Dunaway as actress Joan Crawford berating her daughter in Mommie Dearest, one of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing on this season premiere program of sneak previews, 2 critics talking about the latest movies in town. Across the aisle from me, back from summer vacation, Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And across the aisle from me, Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune. For one of the most entertaining movies of the year, let's move on to one of the least entertaining and most painful movies of the year. The film is Mommie Dearest, starring Faye Dunaway in an unremittingly unpleasant portrait of movie star Joan Crawford. The movie's based, of course, on the best-selling book by Christina Crawford, Joan's adopted daughter, who characterizes Crawford as a cruel, jealous, domineering mother who made her children's lives hell on earth. Well, is this portrait an accurate one? I don't know. I have no way of knowing. But the movie wades into Crawford's life with a vengeance, showing as a movie star in crisis. She's growing older. Her films are losing money. She's about to be fired from MGM. And worst of all, her daughter is a naughty little girl. In this scene, Joan Crawford arrives at a restaurant and is summoned by studio chief Louis B. Mayer for a command performance.
Hello, L.B. What a pleasant surprise.
Jody, I want you to meet a few financial friends from New York. They're bankers. Mr. Lubin.
It's a pleasure.
Mr. Dodd.
Mr. Dodd.
How do you do? Please, sit down. Join us.
My daughter Ellen would love to have your signature, Miss
Well, of
Crawford.
course.
You see, she didn't ask for L.B. Mayer's signature.
That's because she's not as smart as her father. She doesn't know that you're the king.
Thank you, Dad.
Where are you going? Come join us. We're having dinner. You're one of the reasons bankers love Metro.
Oh, no. Thank you, L.B., but our table is ready.
I insist. You're aces, Jody.
Glad you think that, L.B., because aces beat king.
Not in Hollywood, dear.
You can really see the anger beneath the surface there. The movie portrays Crawford as an alcoholic and a manic depressive, celebrating an Oscar victory in one scene and whipping her daughter in the next scene. This film lingers on the mistreatment of the little girl in scene after scene until I began to feel really creepy watching Crawford whip Christina with a coat hanger, hit her with a can of Babbo, chop off her hair with a scissors, try to strangle her to death, and yet in public, of course, Crawford was an ideal mother, as this smarmy Christmas scene illustrates.
All of America knows of your generosity in adopting these 2 homeless children. And might I say to all of our listeners, they're beautifully behaved.
Thank you, George. I feel that discipline mixed with love is such a good recipe.
Christina, do you and your brother get lots of presents at Christmas time?
Yes, we do. Mother's fans send us so many beautiful things. But we like to share them with other boys and girls who aren't so fortunate.
Miss Crawford, could you tell us what will happen after we leave you this evening?
Oh, the children and I will probably sit and watch the Christmas tree lights. And then later, we'll welcome some of the children's friends to help us sing Christmas carols.
And surely you'll finish up by reading "'Twas the Night Before Christmas"?
No Christmas Eve would be complete without that.
Well, as a Christmas present to our listeners, would all of you like to say the last 2 lines?
And I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
A happy little Hollywood scene with unbelievable tension underneath. What made Joan Crawford run? This movie never says. There's no explanation for the star's cruelty toward her child, not even the kind of bargain basement Freudianism that Hollywood usually throws in for free. Mommie Dearest is like a nasty gossip column, and it's all the more disappointing because it is a well-made film. Faye Dunaway is uncanny in her performance as Crawford. It's like watching a ghost to see her on the screen, especially in that scene. The sets and costumes, the limousines and homes and swimming pools are all absolutely faithful to our notions of Hollywood glamour, but Mommie Dearest is basically just a pointless record of neurotic child abuse, one of the most depressing films in a long time.
I agree with you. Well made, but depressing. The way the film has been structured, you sit there and wait for the beating scenes, and when you're in the audience thinking that, you sort of feel lousy. I like the film a little bit more than you for the following reason. I thought that the film didn't explain Crawford, as you mentioned, but I did think the film was a pretty good portrait of the kids' reaction. Christina Crawford is played at two ages, a 9-year-old by that little girl, and then later on by Diana Scarwood as a woman in her 20s. And both characters, I think, portray the pain and really make you feel some of that the kid suffers.
Sure you
so
do.
Part of the film works at that level.
Sure you do, but why do you want to know that? First of all, we don't know if it's true about Joan Crawford, and if it is, why is that the only aspect of this film that makes the film commercial, the fact that it's about child abuse? Why is it that they felt that anybody, who would want to, I can't imagine who would want to see this film.
Well, you would want to see the subject treated well.
Yeah.
I think that's the case. They didn't treat it well, and I think you're right. They don't explain why she's doing it. You sit there, and then it becomes a crass kind of a thing. So that's
really an ordeal.
That's the problem with the film.
But two disappointed no votes for Mommie Dearest. The portrait of Joan Crawford is a child abuser. Faye Dunaway is fine in her role, but the film is pointlessly depressing.